The lessons and learning that occur from reading the Bible continue to astound me week after week. And truly, without the learning that I get from the Bible, I wouldn't be able to make sense of our world and what's happening today, because it's such a frightening, evil place. The violence in our world is just truly heartbreaking, and all the depth of evil that people are stooping to do to each other. It can seem so hopeless and evil, but our Almighty God has the exact formula that we need to fix the mess that we have found ourselves in. God expects that we read it, that we understand it, and that we stop being warriors. I'm so scared, and be warriors for God. I know that I used to be a terrible warrior, and I still have to pull myself up for it to this day. But the more of the word we read, the stronger we become, and the stronger our belief in ourselves and in God helping us. So let us explore the formula for how to change our world to being peaceful and prosperous. And I don't mean just rainbows and lollipops of, oh, I'm going to pray for this person and tell them God loves them. Yes, that's absolutely important. But I can tell you from experience that I've experienced myself, lots of people mock and laugh at you for that, and they've got no interest in learning. So we have to be stronger than that. We have to adapt and change according to who we're speaking to and what type of evil that they're living into. We want to make this world, I'm sure you're with me, a better place, not just for ourselves, but for our grandchildren and for our great-grandchildren. And for our children, for that matter. I missed our children. Yes, it's absolutely end times, absolutely 100%. But Jesus doesn't say that we sit back and do nothing because it's end times. He calls us to action at all times. He doesn't want reluctance or timidity or inaction. The first person that I want to look to for a solution to our problems is Manasseh. He was actually Hezekiah's son, and Hezekiah did some really wonderful things. I spoke about him in one of my previous videos about the incredible wall that he built around the temple, a huge big area around Israel. But he also reconsecrated the temple, and he destroyed pagan idols. Now there's a verse that ties together so much of what he did. 2 Chronicles 32:32. The other events of Hezekiah's reign and his acts of devotion are written in the vision of the prophet Isaiah, son of Amoz, and in the book of Kings of Judah and Israel. So he was a wonderful man of God, yet his son Manasseh, he fell, and he fell very far. I'll read some of the verses from 2 Chronicles 33. It's quite lengthy, but it's worthwhile to read to get a grasp of what he did and how he turned things around. He did what the Lord said was wrong. He did the hateful things the nations had done, the nations that the Lord had forced out of the land ahead of the Israelites. Manasseh's father, Hezekiah, had torn down the places where gods were worshipped, but Manasseh rebuilt them. He also built altars for the Baal gods, and he made Asherah poles and worshipped all the stars of the sky and served them. And I'll skip ahead. Manasseh built altars in the temple of the Lord. He built altars to worship the stars in the 2 courtyards of the temple of the Lord, and he made his children pass through the fire in the valley of Ben Hinnom. He practiced magic and witchcraft, and he told the future by explaining signs and dreams. He got advice from mediums and fortune tellers. He did many things the Lord said were wrong, which made the Lord angry. Manasseh carved an idol and put it in the temple of God. But Manasseh also led the people of Judah and Jerusalem to do wrong. When you think about that, and think about that he had his children passed down through fire of the valley of Ben Hinnom, and he was doing worse than what the people that were driven out of Israel. Oh my gosh, they were doing terrible things. They were sacrificing their children, which sounds like he was sacrificing children and all the evil things that God commanded those people to be wiped out for, Manasseh's then gone ahead and been doing himself. He committed absolutely shameful acts that brought evil to the Lord's temple, and the result was, says again, we'll go back to 2 Chronicles, they captured Manasseh, put hooks in him, ouch, placed bronze chains on his hands and took him to Babylon. As Manasseh suffered, he begged the Lord his God for help and humbled himself before the God of his ancestors. Wow. So the punishment for his sin is often avoided being spoken about. We talk about all the lovely stuff that happens, but we don't talk about the fact that he was really punished and hard. He had hooks in him and he had chains on him. We can't just walk the walk of just appeasing people, though, of just, this is all the lovely stuff about God, because God is absolutely lovely. He's incredible, but he's also God to be feared. He has wrath, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to be teaching people. We all need to have a healthy love of God and a fear of our Almighty, as he expects us all to live into our faith and what he commands of us. I mean, not taking verses in isolation and ignoring all the things, like just looking at all the lovely things and then just ignoring the rest. I mean the entirety and truly honoring what he says, because God says that he punishes us for disobedience. And one of the ways that he does that, let me read. 1 Peter 2:13-14. For the Lord's sake, yield to the people who have authority in this world, the king, who is the highest authority, and the leaders who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong and to praise those who do right. So that's very clearly, God is saying that we have to obey our governments, because our governments are sent to punish us and they're sent to reward us. So when we have good governance and our countries are flowing incredibly well and everyone's doing the right thing, people have been following God. Our country is falling apart. We haven't been following God. I want to give another example of that. I heard a documentary this week, and it was about the recent earthquake in Afghanistan. And there was quite a few women that survived the earthquake. The reason I specifically say women is because they then died because no one would rescue them. In their religion, they believe that a man can't touch a woman, a Muslim woman, outside his family. So even though they could see the women or they could hear the women crying, they wouldn't touch them. Even the emergency services wouldn't touch them. Why? Because they dishonor God. They don't follow the Bible. So they've got evil governance that just does terrible things. Lots of men were saved, lots of little boys were saved, but the women and little girls all just perished because no one would help them. We see the same in the UK. I've talked about it before. They're having dreadful difficulty, and specifically that one of the big things they're having trouble with is the women are getting raped, and so are young girls. There's lots of groomers that are out there grooming young children, and then they're taking them and raping them. I heard about a little girl that was 5 years old that got raped the other day. It's disgusting, and it's the same religion, and it's getting a foothold in their country because they turned against God. The Bible says that we're to love all people, but Deuteronomy 12:3 says, tear down their altars, smash their holy stone pillars, and burn their Asherah poles in the fire. Cut down their idols and destroy their names from those places. Deuteronomy 20:18 says, otherwise, they will teach you what they do for their gods. And if you do these hateful things, you will sin against the Lord your God. And we see that happening so much. I can give so many examples. So many people love Buddhism because they think it's this peaceful religion. I've even seen people get tattooed on them the lotus flower and all sorts of things in honor of Buddhism, who have come from Christian countries and they've changed. Look at the protests. Goodness me, there's just evil right through the pro-Palestinian. And I saw one the other day. Somebody was carrying a flag that was loving Hamas, however you say it. And they were all sorts of dreadful things. But these are Aussies who were born into Christianity, and yet they're going and supporting this absolute evil. They're learning because we're allowing Islam to practice here, Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, all the religions. They've all got their temples all around Melbourne, all over the spot, all over the shop. That warning is also repeated in Exodus 34:13. And you can't say that, well, that's Old Testament, Carolyn, because Jesus said not a letter of the law will change. So that means that we need to keep ourselves safe by enforcing that, by getting our governments, good government into our government, good people, good governance into our government, who honour God and who honour stopping these religions. Other religions and beliefs bring dreadful evil to our countries. And I see, for example, even rubbish. There's so much rubbish in the west side of Melbourne because a whole lot of people have moved out here. They don't have respect for Christianity. They don't have respect for God's country, and they just throw their rubbish everywhere. It's just disgusting. When I grew up, our country was really tidy, and now it's just getting really untidy. I see total disrespect for women, total disrespect, and for humans as a whole, for that matter, because people are honouring pagan gods, not just Islam, but all of them. They're bringing their beliefs to our Christian country because their beliefs didn't work in their country, but they bring it to our country because our countries are great, and then our countries have been destroyed because people are leaving Christianity and following their dreadfully evil religions. Our government has also accepted gay marriage and is pushing the transgender agenda, etc., in all of our schools with our young children. And that goes completely against God and raises children to believe in it, bringing more to the cult of sexual immorality. We cannot do that as we continue to be punished by God. And the same with allowing these pro-Palestinian marches week after week after week. There's so much hatred, and then there's more people that were raised in Christian families or raised in a Christian country who are joining in and getting caught up in the propaganda. How do we turn the tables? How do we get our countries safe again? Is it too late? Let's go back to Manasseh and see how he turned around his situation. I continue with 2 Kings 18:13. When Manasseh prayed, the Lord heard him and had pity on him. So the Lord let him return to Jerusalem and his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that the Lord is the true God. Manasseh rebuilt the outer wall of Jerusalem and made it higher. He put commanders in all the strong-walled cities in Judah. Manasseh removed the idols of other nations, including the idol in the temple of the Lord. He removed all the altars he had built on the Temple Hill and in Jerusalem and threw them out of the city. Then he set up the Lord's altar and sacrificed on it fellowship offerings and offerings to show thanks to God. Manasseh commanded all the people of Judah to serve the Lord, the God of Israel. The people continued to offer sacrifices at the places of worship, but their sacrifices were only to the Lord their God. The other things Manasseh did as king, his prayer to his God, and what the seers said to him in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel, are all recorded in the book of history of the kings of Israel. Manasseh's prayer and God's pity for him, his sins, his unfaithfulness, the places he built for worshipping gods, and the Asherah poles before he humbled himself. Wow. Very clearly, just what I was saying. So he was getting in there, he was doing the wrong thing, and then he got punished for it. He realized that he was doing the wrong thing, so he completely turned tables and he kicked out all of the terrible, evil religions, and then he flourished. And it says that he was buried when he passed away in his kingdom. He didn't do that without being brave. He had to be brave and stand up and remove all of the altars, because we can just read that and think, oh yeah, whatever, he removed the altars. But imagine the people. Think about it. Think about it in Australia, right here, right now, whatever country you're in, watching this on YouTube, could be anywhere. If you suddenly went to the Buddhist temple and said, okay, we're pulling this down. We're going to the mosques. Yep, we're pulling them down. Yep, we're pulling down the Taoists, the whatever. People would be up in arms. They'd be furious, pulling down the witches, whatever places they have, and the aliens like the Scientology, people would be furious. But Manasseh had courage and did it. And then God saw that and favored him because he realized that he was stopping sinning. I know that lots of people would have been absolutely screaming at him and furious and trying to stop him with violence. I have no doubt. But he realized that he had far worse to deal with than angry people. He had the wrath of God, and he had to get right with God. And so he did. He absolutely did. He got rid of all the pagan worship, and he was rewarded for that. The absolute power of someone stepping up to honor God can never be understated. This week, and I'm got to be not emotional talking about this. You know I'm emotional if you've watched my videos, but the lovely and confident and faithful servant of God, Charlie Kirk, was murdered in cold blood in front of his children and his wife and thousands of people that were there to listen to him. He appears to have been murdered for exactly what I spoke about, for trying to stop people following evil. He wasn't breaking down their Asherah poles, but he was talking to them, breaking down the spiritual warfare that was happening in those people's lives. The gun that they found, that they believe killed him, had 2 bullets left in it, and they had engraved on the bullets stuff about transgender and anti-fascist stuff, because the people were up in arms against Charlie, saying that he was a fascist, and he wasn't. He was a disciple of God and was stepping out, as any good disciple does, unashamed and unafraid to tell people that they were doing wrong, the same as Manasseh did by pulling everything down. He would have had to say, look, no, we're doing the wrong thing. We have to go the right path. People don't want to hear it, but Charlie knew that his love for God comes before everything and anything, so he continued to speak against evil. Well, perhaps you're thinking, well, how's that fair, Carolyn? Because God saved Manasseh, but he didn't save Charlie, and he's got a young family. Well, all I know is that my feed, I watched a little bit of Charlie. I didn't know him, watch him a lot, but a little bit, but my feed is just exploded with Charlie interviews. And I heard some leaders saying that he's bigger in death than he was in life, because he was huge in life, but now that he's been killed, even evil people are going, that's not fair. He was standing up and giving free speech. He shouldn't be allowed to be killed. Even people who had never heard of Charlie Kirk are now furious and angry that we're losing our freedom, our Christian freedom to speak up and help people to stop them change, to help them to change, We've also got to remember that God has a time for all of us, a time for all of us to live and a time for all of us to die. And that can seem really sad for Charlie, but you can't ever be sad for Charlie, because he'll never be sad ever again. He'll never be lonely ever again. Me and my emotions. He'll never be stressed ever again. He'll never experience grief ever again. Never anything negative ever again, because he's safe with Jesus. I know that his beautiful family will suffer, his beautiful children growing up without a dad, and his wife without the love of Charlie, but God always has purpose in our trials. Also, Charlie's family and friends will suffer, and God has purpose in our trials to make us stronger. He doesn't put us on this train and go, okay, if you get on my train with me, you'll never have to worry about anything ever again, because that would be convenient worshippers going, oh, I can just go on this train. This is fun. I don't have to do anything. No, we have to prove to Jesus that we're true. And that's what will happen with that. And with people, I have no doubt lots of people's souls will be saved, because there's been already video surfacing about a young man asked Charlie, I don't know how long ago, what would happen? What would you like to be remembered for if you died? And he's like, oh, if I died, for my faith. Well, that's absolutely what everyone knows him for, and he will inspire so many people through his death. Many of the disciples were martyred, and Charlie is no different to that. He was standing there time after time after time with people attacking him, and yet he was defending his faith, defending God, And he could have just stayed at home and been scared. He instead got out to fight the fight, to make America wake up and anyone who watched his video instead of them being woke. And this is epitomized by Ezekiel 9:4. He said to the man, "Go through Jerusalem and put a mark on the foreheads of people who groan and cry about all the hateful things being done among them." Charlie knew about the hate, but he was unashamed and unafraid, as I said before. He stepped forward instead of staying home and groaning and crying. He wanted different for him and his family's future. Charlie most certainly had a mark on his forehead, but not to live on this earth, to go to the kingdom of heaven. And that's powerful. And that's what all of us seek. Charlie lost his life here, but his actions gave him eternity in heaven. And that doesn't just come with prayer. God needs us to be the hands and feet, and he gives us victory through our faith in stepping out and trusting him. Manasseh stepped out and trusted God. Charlie stepped out and trusted God, and he would have saved, I have no doubt, thousands of people's souls, and will probably continue to, because he challenged their mindsets. The walls of Jericho fell with obedience to God. Can you imagine how terrifying that it would have been for them to be told that they have to go and march around it 7 times and then blow the horn, and yet they did it. And they received such a huge victory with Jericho being destroyed because of their obedience. They felt the fear and did it anyway. I spoke last week about the protest that I attended with the flag of Israel and the flag that said Jesus is King, and how powerful and life-changing that was, increasing my faith, because I received an angel stepping up and others to help stop the attack on me. But I'm very ashamed to say that on Thursday, I found out about another protest that's going to occur on Saturday, and that there's going to be 4 separate groups this time. There's going to be 2 to come against specifically the group that I was marching with, to stop people from trying to destroy our Christian values, our Australian values. And so I made excuses. I was frightened after what happened with Charlie. I just went, oh my gosh, I was there antagonizing people because I had the flag, and I had people saying to me, oh, you're only come to stir up SHIT with that, or throw that effing thing in the river, and all sorts of things. And I wasn't flaunting it at them, but just by being there was antagonizing them. And I thought, I can't go this week, I'm too scared. And I honestly woke up on Friday morning and I just felt yuck. I felt terrible. And I felt flat and really in despair. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why do I feel this way? And then I came to my senses and I thought, I am going to the protest, because I got so much out of that protest. And you know what happened? As soon as I did that, the despair just lifted and I felt elated. I felt wonderful, because I want our country to be a better place, and I can't sit at home and be afraid of Satan. We all need to step up, as what Jesus tells Peter, James and John, who were with him in the garden. And he said that he is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death in Matthew 26:38. And Luke even describes Jesus' sweat like drops of blood falling on the ground in Luke 22:44. Jesus was so broken because of evil, and he knew what was going to occur to him. He wasn't just worrying about it. He was actively had planned exactly what would happen to him. And he knew the depth of the beating and the aggression and the extremity and the crucifixion. And he was taking our place. He was sinless. He stepped up, so afraid of how much it was going to hurt him as the physical side of him. And he could have stopped it at any minute, but he didn't. The least that all of us can do is be brave to make sure that our countries are Christian, and that all the evil places of worship are stopped and broken down and taken away, and they're not allowed to do that anymore. Those people have come to our countries because their own countries didn't flourish, and yet they bring the exact same beliefs here. I'm not being racist. I'm just stopping evil beliefs like we're called to do in the Bible. The same with all of the woke rubbish. We need to be part of stopping it. God wants action, not whining. He wants us to courageously step forward as the people in the Bible did. Now for a different example, let's look at Jonah. He ran from what God asked him to do, and then he finally conceded and went to Nineveh to do as asked and to tell them that they will be destroyed for their evil. That would have been terrifying. One person going to a city and telling them that God was going to kill them for their evil. Yet, because he did, they repented, and so many souls were saved. Then Jonah got himself all confused and was actually angry that God didn't kill them, and said it would be better off for him to die than to live in Jonah 4:3. He thought that they should all be punished and was so angry that they weren't. Yet when God raised up the plant to shade him and then killed it quickly and raised the temperature so that he was really uncomfortable, he was furious about that. God demonstrated Jonah's hypocrisy at caring about the plant, yet not at all about the people that God greatly cares about. And Jonah had sinned himself by running away from wanting to tell them, and yet he didn't want them to be forgiven, yet he was forgiven. We are not to harm others. We are to try to save their souls by teaching them the truth, like Charlie, like the disciples, like Jonah and Christ. How many of us are guilty of just trying to think things better or just pray things better instead of actually taking action? Prayer is really important, don't get me wrong. Prayer is powerfully important. It's central to everything. But God also expects our action. We have to leave our comfort zones. We can't just whinge and whine about their behaviours and worry and sit at home. We have to take an active stance against their behaviours. I'm ashamed to say, with what I was telling you before, that I was really certain about how proud I was for going last time and for the incredible positive experience. And yet, only a fortnight later, I'm at first incredibly frightened. And that changed when I realised that I was following stupid head instead of my heart, instead of listening to God and following my faith. I know a really big part of God waking me up was something that I saw on that Thursday night after I decided that I definitely wasn't going to it, because I only found out about it, I'm not sure, maybe, actually it was probably within the same hour. And I went, oh my goodness, I'm not going to it. And then I saw this video and it made me cry. I couldn't erase it makes me cry again. The image from my head, no matter how hard I try, it was just awful. But God wanted me to see it, and it was a video, and it made me realize that I have to be in the protest over in the night. I was thinking about it because it was awful. And I'll tell you what it was that I saw. It was an Israelite woman that Hamas had taken on October 7th, and they had videoed what they were doing to her to be shared and celebrated amongst their people. I'd heard that they had cut off genitals, but hearing it and then actually seeing it is two completely different things. I saw a woman in absolute agony and her pants were just drenched in blood. And he was yanking her along by the hair. She had been mutilated. Some of the people had been sexually mutilated, from children to old women. Further information that I found there is of a video that was circulating that, again, Hamas were really proud of to show to their people, was a young woman that they had gang raped. There was 9 of them had raped her. And while one of them was raping her, another got a big hunting knife and cut off her breast. She was alive, and he threw it on the ground. When it got to the 9th one, and he was raping her, he shot her in the head, and then he continued raping her until he'd finished with what he wanted to do to her, and then threw her on the ground. Little boys, 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, and their mother were taken, and Hamas murdered them in front of the mother and then killed her too. All of that evil has been occurring since Muhammad in 680 AD. It's disgusting and revolting and repulsive. And it's not just extremists. People push that it's extremists doing that. It's the Islamic religion. It's revolting. And I've read all of it. I've talked about it in my other videos. But they're teaching it in our mosques, in our countries, in our Christian countries. And they've got schools. They've got lots of schools in Melbourne. I know where there's 3 of them for starters, without even researching it, just people that I've met that send their children to them. And they teach all that. They teach all that revolting stuff that can be done to all of us, and teach that it's wonderful. That's why they share it on video, because they're all proud and they cheer and think it's wonderful. By letting these people into our countries, we have so many people, and allowing them to practice their religion, we have so many people that are getting fooled by them. I don't know if that made you cry or makes you angry, but it certainly does me. And I hear so many people say, look, leave them alone, just let them practice. It's their own right to practice whatever religion they want to practice. Really? When it says to murder all of us if we don't convert, the women are to become unwilling sex slaves. They can burn us to death. They can torture us, cut off our every fingertip, and revolting things that can rape as many women as they want to. It's disgusting. I met a Turkish man literally this week as well, and he said that he was raised in Turkey, a Muslim man, and then he saw the horrendous beliefs come into action when they attacked the Christians. This man was probably in his 50s, I assume. They attacked Christians. They murdered all boys over 12 years old, and all the young ones were indoctrinated, and all the women became sex slaves. And he went, that doesn't make sense. But that doesn't change without our actions. Some men are like that man, or some people are like that man that see the evil, while others just stay stuck in it. We need to have strong faith. We need to have faith like Ezra. He mourned for those sinning. He inspired people to stop intermarrying with those that worship pagan gods or those that cause them to sin. Ezra 10:3-4. Now let us make an agreement before our God. We will send away all these women and children, as you and those who respect the commands of our God advise. Let it be done to obey God's teaching. Get up, Ezra. You are in charge and we will support you. Have courage and do it. That might sound really harsh, but when we see the evil, like I've just been talking about, that occurs because as a direct result of these religions, we can't support having our children intermarry with them. We can't support having them practice that in our country. We don't want God to ever say to us, go away, evildoer, I never knew you. We want him to say, well done, good and faithful servant. And by stopping these people, we are being good and faithful servants. We need to stand against evil, not tolerate it, as it's spreading fast and threatening our lifestyle of honouring God. I firmly believe that Charlie was a man following as Ezra. He was unafraid to speak against evil. He was unashamed to speak of God's anger in cohesion with God's love. God's love isn't to allow sin and evil for all. God's love has rules that protect us. Are you willing to stand against evil? Matthew 10:28. Don't be afraid of people who can kill the body but not kill the soul. The only one you should fear is the one who can destroy the soul and the body in hell. I by no means am inciting hate or violence against any of these people. I want to be really clear about that. What I want is to encourage everyone to live up, to stand up before our country is gone. Whatever country you live in, Satan has to be stopped. There's no good in anything that he does. God is calling us all into action if we want to continue to live under his protection. The Israelites had to march out of Egypt. The Israelites had to march around Jericho. The Israelites had to defeat the Canaanites, Hittites, Amalekites. They had to be bold. They had to be brave. They had to be courageous. They had to be warriors. And they had to not be afraid, mice, too scared to venture out. When they were frightened and didn't trust, that made God angry. Somebody else that is really powerful to think about is David. And few scriptures can rival what God called David, a man after my own heart. And when you think about the terrible sins that he did, the reason God said the good thing is because he repented, but it was because he had such a deep love of God, and this was shown through the grief he felt over others' sins. He said in Psalm 119, 136, tears stream down my eyes because people do not obey your teachings. And in verse 53 of 119, I become angry with wicked people who do not keep your teachings. And 119, 158, though I see those traitors and I hate them because they do not obey what you say. I don't mean for a second to hate anyone, but you've got to hate what I was talking about with all of those evil things that occurred. The poor woman raped by 9 men and her breast cut off and then murdered and then continued to rape her corpse. Apparently they raped lots of corpses because Muhammad had sex with his dead auntie in the grave and told other people to do that too. And it's honestly not just picking on Islam here, because it's just that Islam is so profoundly evil. And all the horrible things that happened on October 7th, and then what happened to Charlie because of people with woke ideology. We have to do something. We have to step up and make positive change. God exiled the Israelites for disobedience. If we live in our country being allowed to have evil religions and sexual immorality in our schools, we are inciting God's anger against ourselves, and he is punishing us here and now, and we could get exiled from our own country. We might have to run, because if the evil continues to take over, we're going to have to go somewhere safe, and we mightn't be able to get anywhere. We see in Psalm 13, which begins with David saying, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long do you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts day after day, have sorrow in my heart after pouring out my heart?" And that was in verses 1 to 2. So after pouring out his heart and making a request to God, David ends with these lines: "But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's Prayer, for he has been good to me," in verses 5 to 6. So we can't just go, "Oh my gosh, God, our country is falling apart. Where are you? You've turned your face from us. You've forgotten us." We have to stand up, because we've been allowing it. It's not up to God to force our governments to be voted in by people who, he'd have to force people to be Christians, to only vote for the people who have Christian morals and values, and that he's not going to force anything. We have to change. We have to stand up. We have to be God's hand and feet. We can all feel so overwhelmed with the violence and evil in our countries and feel forgotten, but we have to trust God as David did, and we have to keep our values. I saw a flag that someone had at one of the pro-Palestinian protests, and it was the same colour as our flag, the blue with the stars. But when you looked at it, the Union Jack had gone. The Union Jack was the cross of St. David, the cross of St. George, and the cross of St. Andrew, and the Southern Cross, because of course we value the cross. We could have had any of the other constellations, but we had the cross of the Southern Cross, and they just had random stars on the flag. So evil people recognize the power of God. Evil people recognize that they don't want it on our flag because they don't want our country protected. And it's so powerful. Again, this week I experienced something amazing. A man was really full on attacking me and mocking God and mocking my values and everything. And I got him to watch one of my videos, the one about the proof of God. And he just fell apart. He just was terrified. There's no other word for it. Absolutely terrified, and said he never wanted to speak to me again because he wrote something on, just trying to think. Anyway, whatever. He just shut down. When we believe in God, when we work with God, God supports us, and God shuts down evil. Evil can only take our values from our country if we are passive and afraid and just let them. Jesus is calling his warriors to show that we love and trust him more than we fear Satan. He doesn't want warriors like I was on Thursday. He wants warriors, as I said. He is our almighty warrior, and he is calling us to walk alongside him. Are you willing to answer his call? Are you willing to secure our futures and our children's and our grandchildren's and our great-grandchildren's? The broken and the weak need us to save them. Those poor women that I saw that had been sexually mutilated and all the other things that I talked about, they need us to be strong and to stand up. There's thousands more of them in the world that we don't see or hear about on a day-to-day basis because the media keeps it from us, because the media works with Satan. If we don't want it to happen here or to happen in Israel that we need to protect, we need to stand up. We need to make the enemy tremble like I did with that man who was mocking, and then he watched the video to mock me and he ended up getting terrified. I read the lyrics from a wonderful song that raises warriors to warriors. Said, rumors spreading around, nothing but a liar. Get on out of here, get up on and leave. Ain't no devil gonna tread on me. He's choking on the blood that run down the tree. Ain't no devil gonna tread on me. And that's called Don't Tread on Me song. And it's by We and the Kingdom. I encourage you to listen to that. And I also encourage you to listen to Stephen Curtis Chapman song called Warrior. And I pray that this week that you get out and think about how you can be a warrior for God, how you can step up and stop evil, how you can be a part of us getting all of these awful places of worship that are so incredibly evil taken down, and stop these people having power in our country to destroy our Christian values and morals. God is mighty, and I'm so proud of you for having faith in God, because you're sitting here watching this. Get up, get out, get strong. Let's be warriors together. Let's work together for the good of God. God bless you.